Welcome to the Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you guys here on this Sunday, November 2nd, 2025. We are live. Welcome back to every single one of you. So good to have you all here. Just to let you guys know, the Jaybe show is every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern as well. You can find me on the Savvy and Jaybe show on Thursdays at 5 and on my personal channel, the Jaybe Font channel, on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps us out to be able to reach more people, help encourage, inspire, and activate. So you guys have that there as well. Also, if you guys have not, you guys can join our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. So whenever we do have any uploaded clips or we go live like this, you guys are not left out in the dark. So thank you very much for that. And also, if you'd like to get in contact with us, you can email us at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com if you guys have any stories or any encouraging words that you would like to share with us. So thank you very much for that there. So welcome back to every single one of you. So good to be here with you guys now in the fall. I am really hoping that you guys were able to get a little extra hour of sleep today, because yes, we did fall back in the time for the daylight savings time has shifted back. So we are now getting, I guess, an hour of sleep more. Maybe. Have you been asleep? Did you party last night? Did you party like a rock star? All right, guys, let's say hello to everybody that's in the chat. Good to see all of you here. Just give our salutations while we're at it. So we have Lauren coming in saying 260 million adults live in the U.S., but only 77 million of them voted for Trump, just 30%. How can I find common ground with the 183 million American adults who have never voted for a felon? Here's the thing. Now, you can find common ground with pretty much most Americans when it comes to economic issues, when it comes to, taking care of ourselves and our families. You can find a lot of common ground with them on that. Here's the thing I want you to understand. A huge chunk of Americans who voted for Trump and Harris are brainwashed to think that either party is there to serve them. And they're both also brainwashed to think that either party, one, will be at least a little bit better on serving them than the other. When in reality, they both get their donations or bribes from the corporate masters that they serve. They do not serve you at all. And so this is why we at Revolutionary Blackout Network are post-duopoly. That means that we do not take our cues from either party. We take our cues from the working class. And the thing is like the problem with this binary thinking of, well, the Republicans, they voted for a felon. Yeah, but you know what? Democrats also voted for a genocide heir. Both are horrible. Right? One voted for a racist, sexual assaulting felon, and the other side voted for a cop who ultimately, has instituted anti-Black policies, as well as is complicit in a genocide of an indigenous people. So therefore, either side is terrible. And it's not, one's slightly better than the other. That's what they want you to think, so that you stay within this box that they have set for you, so that you don't go outside of it. And so that's one of the reasons why we talk about being post-duopoly, by leaving both parties, becoming independent like people like myself are. And also when it comes to the rights of people, make sure that you push for something that is dignified, egalitarian, and equitable for everybody. Because the problem is that we're so stuck on, individualism, that we forget that without the collective, we wouldn't survive. So thank you very much for that. Good to see Miguel coming in here. saying peace. Nice to have you in here as well. We have Zero coming in saying, as always, I'll be attending. They can take my headphones battery, but they can't take my ideology. Thank you so very much for that. We have Sean coming in saying, hello, JB, currently watching Chargers take on Tennessee while tuning in today's stream. Thank you very much. I hope that you're cheering. I hope whatever team you're rooting for wins. So thank you so very much. We have Vic coming in saying, yo, JB. Yo, Vic, what's good? How you doing? Good to see you. All right. Chima is also became a channel member. So clap it up for Chima. Thank you so very much. Oh, very generous of you too. Chima also gifted a membership as well. Thank you. Deeply appreciated. So good to have you with us joining on this stream as well. Says, what happened to super chats? We can still get them. We're still monetized. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but we did have super chats. But I'll look into it a little bit later. But thank you very much. We have Terry coming in saying, greetings, comrades. Good to see you, Terry. Nice to have you in here in the chat as well. All right, guys. So we're going to get into the show today because I really want to get into these two subjects, right? Because I think it's important that we talk about these in line with what we're going through here in this country. Ultimately, there has to be control, has to be set back into the hands of the people. Well, was it ever really in the hands of the people? Technically, no, but it needs to be in the hands of the people. So let's go here. All right. So what we're talking about today, let's get it. Later in the show, we're going to be talking about Testify. We're going to church, y'all. It's Sunday. Let's go. And is that Bibi Netanyahu? Did he testify in front of the Lord? We'll get into that because that one is interesting. And yes, I was cracking up when I made that photo. Yes. But first, we're going to be talking about strangers in our own country. We're going to be talking about Black Americans in particular with this story, because I think this is also important for us to get into because of the disproportionate nature of what's been happening, especially as of late in regards to the government shutdown. So we'll be getting into that right now. So if you're a Black American within this country, you know one thing is for sure, that the welcome mat was never really there for us. Sure, you have people like the Democrats that kneel on Kensey cloth, and now you have Republicans saying, oh, well, we want just the same thing as you. We're the party of Abraham Lincoln. But in reality, have we ever really been welcome in this country? Let's get into this because I want to share this article, because when I saw this article, I said to myself, you know what? This is something that I think that a lot of us have felt for pretty much the entirety of our existence in this country. And so I want to get into this article that was out Axios. So it is really interesting. Let's get into this. So it says Axios says Black Americans and Latinos feel alienated in Trump's America by a poll. So let's get into this. It says share of Americans who say they feel like a stranger in their own country. So it surveyed 5,543 U.S. adults, and this was on August 15th to September 8th. So it says all Americans, 46% say that they feel like a stranger in their own country. 46%, that's very significant, right? Just all Americans. 41% of white Americans feel that they're strangers in their own country. Black Americans feel 53%. A majority of us feel like we're strangers in our own country, as well as majority of Latinos. But I want you guys to notice this, that really it is a gigantic leap. Because, I mean, if you went back 30, 40, 50 years, people would probably say something quite different. So let's get into this. I know Axios is playing around. All right, so let me make sure that I have this. My apologies. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the archive version because they put it behind a paywall. They let me read it first, and then they just said, "Okay, now we're gonna force you to pay for it." All right, bro. Okay. All right, so let me share this. Thank you for your patience, people. Appreciate it very much. All right, we have this, and then all we got to do is expand. Magic wand, make my page grow. All right. What I just said, if you know, you know, baby. If you know, you know. All right. It says Black and Latino Americans are reporting record level of alienation and pessimism about the nation's direction as President Trump tightens his focus on immigration enforcement and civil rights rollbacks. Now, let's get into why this matters. It says more Latinos and Black voters supported Trump in 2024 than his two previous presidential runs, but early into his second term, the sense of exclusion has deepened among communities of color. Says nearly 2/3 of Americans believe that the U.S. is headed in the wrong direction, fueled by dissatisfaction with Trump's impact on the economy and immigration, according to a survey by the nonpartisan Public Religion Research Institute and the Brookings Institution. It says of all racial groups, Black Americans at 84% and Latinos at 70% are the most dissatisfied with the country's direction, according to a poll that surveyed Americans on religion, values, and moods. Now, it says 60% of Black Americans and 51% of Latinos say that their economic situation has worsened this year. Over half of Black and Latino respondents say they feel like strangers in their own country. And says only 16% of Black Americans and 30% of Latinos view Trump favorably. Now, just to let you guys know, this was covered about a day ago, that Latino support for Trump has actually the stark nature of the deportations that he has doing. And as far as size and scope of the deportations that Donald Trump has done, it's nowhere near the same levels as like an Obama, but it's the cruelty in it that is being on major display. It is shown much more because it's Trump, even though Obama is known as the deporter in chief, meaning or even his contemporary president, Joe Biden. So, with that being said, because it is more advertised, more broadcasted in front of your view, you tend to think that it's higher among somebody like a Donald Trump, when in reality, it's actually not. It's just more in your face than it was with a Barack Obama, who did it more behind the scenes. I referenced this also because it was back in, I think, 2014, where his Department of Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson was actually touring one of the cages that Obama had built for migrants, for undocumented migrants. And so these cages that were built by Obama were utilized heavily by Trump. And so you think about when it comes to immigration, if you really want to blame somebody for the cages, well, you actually have to blame a Democrat for that. And so this is why I was saying in the outset earlier that both parties are trash, because one hand really does shake hands with the other when it comes to how both parties are working in tandem to keep the working class oppressed. And so this is why I think this is so important to get into here. So we're going to continue on. So it says since January, Trump administration has reinterpreted civil rights laws in history to focus on anti-white racism. The administration has also been purging and rewriting stories about slavery and discrimination that appear on federal web pages. And Trump has ordered a review of Smithsonian museums to purge what he called woke ideology. Meanwhile, ICE agents have been accused of racially profiling Latinos and detaining a number of Latino U.S. citizens during raids. And so now going back into Black Americans, says Black Americans list healthcare, racial inequality, and democracy's health as top concerns. Latinos prioritize immigration, jobs, and economic stability. But it says both groups overwhelmingly disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration, raids, and deportations. Now, one of the things that I think is really huge, and a lot of times, people want to focus on what we think about as far as civil rights and race and when it comes to the criminal justice system. While that is deeply important to us as Black people, especially Black Americans, the economy is a huge, major issue. And a lot of times some people skip over that when it comes to us. But Black people, we need economic stability. And with a group that has historically been undermined economically, of course, that is going to be one of our central figures that we actually would like to see better within our country. And this is how some Black Americans were fooled by either a Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, because of the promise of better economic stability, better upward mobility for us. And the problem is that they were just promises. And they weren't even just promises, they were milk toast crumbs that were offered to us to make us think that something's better than nothing, when in reality, they had no intention of giving us anything at all. And so this is one of the reasons why Black people are constantly being left in the back of the bus, so to speak, right? We're constantly in fact, we're not even at the back of the bus, we're kicked off the bus. And so you look at what's going on with both, this would have, a lot of things would happen with the Harris administration in varying degrees. The same thing would happen under Trump. And so you look at both of them. And when it comes to prioritizing any group that has had a history of being marginalized in this country, they look past us and they look at other groups that really are not oppressed like that. For instance, Zionists are really the most vocal right now, and they are getting the most benefit, but they are not an oppressed group. I'm going to say that again. I'm not saying that anti-Semitism isn't real. Anti-Semitism is real. However, it is not to the degree that Zionists say it is. And so the problem is that anti-Blackness is really a much bigger issue than what anti-Semitism is, and that Zionists are saying that or claiming that it is, right? Islamophobia is a much bigger issue than what Zionists say is, oh my God, anti-Semitism is on the rise. Islamophobia is massive. Just look at how they're talking about Zohran Mamdani. Have your critiques of Zohran Mamdani, however you want. I definitely have mine. But one of the things that I think is absolutely abhorrent is the Islamophobia that is being ushered his way simply because he's Muslim. And as the grandson of a Muslim, I take deep offense to that, because the problem is that there are also many Black Americans that are also Muslim in this country as well. And so the Islamophobia also affects them too. So if we're going to talk about it, we got to talk about it, right? Because now you also have that affecting them as well. So this is one of the things that I really wanted to jump into, is that Black Americans really feel like they just do not have a country that is for them. And have we ever, right? This is a quote by Fannie Lou Hamer. It says, "You're getting ready to see real revolution take place in America, a rainbow coalition of people who, in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, are sick and tired of being sick and tired." Yes. And the thing is, we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the problem is that a lot of people ultimately, uh, a lot of us Black Americans, we've checked out politically because we realize that both parties don't care about us. And you have one side that panders superficially by saying that they care about our issues, when in reality, when it comes to the real tangible things that really could help us, for instance, like reparations for American freedmen, or things like real, true criminal justice reform that actually takes the funding away from elements like the police and puts it into our communities so that we can build up generational wealth, so that one of the proponents of crime and poverty is taken away. So therefore, we can actually fare better. And then we can also have equity so that we can be equal, at least, to our white counterparts within this country. Unfortunately, we do not have that because there needs to be a economic hierarchy in place in order to keep the system going, so that we're against one another. And this is part and parcel of the capitalist system, because they need somebody to be at the bottom. And they pick Black people because guess what? This is what they did 200 some odd years ago, when they decided that, oh, how are we going to be able to differentiate the chattel slaves from the indentured servants? Well, boom, skin color, melanin amount. So therefore, the ones who are darker, all right, we're going to make them slaves. We're going to make them chattel slaves. And then you guys, we're not going to necessarily make you indentured servants anymore. We're just going to put you low level. So it's going to be slaves, then the white people who are considered trash, and then above them, you're going to have the WASPs, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants that are of not, I was going to say European descent, but more of British descent, right? And so that's basically how it is. Then that hierarchy started dividing more and more and more. And now you have different hierarchies of different people within this country. And that's why we're at each other's throats, because we see one group get a little bit more than the rest of us. And then we have resentment built towards them. Now, let's get into this next one that I really want to get into, because there's another article that is actually talking about how we are being disproportionately affected, especially in this country, in regards to the government shutdown. So let me make sure this is big enough. All right. And let's share the screen. All right. Okay, so this is out of the Toronto Star. It says the end of federal food aid could hit Black Americans hardest. Says one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the nation, a line stretched alongside the Holy Apostle Soup Kitchen and Pantry. So this is out of New York. So this came out today. So it says in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the nation, a line stretched along the side of the Holy Apostle Soup Kitchen and Pantry. So it talks about a gentleman who is 63 and he's a grandfather and he's on SNAP benefits. So he's trying to help feed his grandchildren, right? So it says two federal judges ruled simultaneously on Friday that President Donald Trump's administration must continue to fund SNAP, this Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the nation's biggest food aid program, using contingency funds during the government shutdown. But officials said it was too late to stop recipients from losing benefits on Saturday, and that restoring them could likely take at least 1 week. So I want to also say this here as well, because you have some people who are saying, well, our money shouldn't be going towards people, who, for food, right? Okay, so a huge majority of SNAP benefits are to elderly, children, as well as people who are disabled, right? You're looking at a SNAP beneficiary right now, okay? And people will look at me and think, oh, well, JB, you're able-bodied, so you shouldn't get SNAP benefits. Meanwhile, some of y'all who don't even know me didn't know that I just got a kidney transplant 6 months ago, and now I'm trying to get a regular job. But at the same time, people should not go without food because there's an absolute pursuit of happiness. Then the things that facilitate that should also be provided. Now, I'm not saying that we should be forcing people to give us food, but look, to each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Therefore, nobody should go hungry in the country, especially because we live in a society. And if you don't want to do that, that means you don't want to live in a society are taking food and blah blah blah. When on top of when you claim you want to live in society, but you don't want to contribute to the elements that make a society. And yes, look, people, and on top of that, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but you'll have people that are basically outraged bucks on, what is it, Twitter or on TikTok, and saying, oh, look, I got all this food, my food stamps. In reality, they might have gotten some of the food on food stamps, but they probably didn't get it all on food stamps. And even if they did get it all on food stamps, you know what? They're also monetized on TikTok. And so your outrage turns into views so that they can get more money off of your outrage. Why? Because they're broke. Because they ain't got shit. You know information in order to be able to receive SNAP benefits. And if you're not making that much of an income, that qualifies you. So therefore, guess what? The people who actually do get SNAP, they're not raking in the dough. And a lot of these people actually have jobs, but their jobs aren't paying enough. Why aren't they paying enough, Jaybe? Maybe wages have not kept up with the cost of inflation. And by inflation, I mean corporate price gouging, right? That's exactly what it is. Corporate price gouging. Let's be real about it. And the problem is that some people, they have more of a problem with people getting a couple of extra dollars in food stamps than the corporation that are gouging us right now. Here's a fact for you. We spend about $100 billion in SNAP benefits on Americans every single year. Meanwhile, our defense department, about $1 trillion a year on defense. And most of that money is going to the people at the top of General Dynamics, Raytheon, Northrop. It's going to those guys. So who is really am more upset at Elon Musk than I ever will be at somebody who gets a few extra dollars in food stamps and wants to get their kid a birthday cake? That don't matter to me. Let's set our priorities in the right way. Okay? And if for the things that they're supposed to be paying for, then guess what? Reparations to all the American freedmen that you guys are benefiting off the labor of, off of our ancestors' labor that was never paid back, right? That generational also is included with that. So guess what? Guess who's in debt? Y'all are in debt to us. And that debt does not clear. It does not go away. But then you want to argue away, oh yeah, we shouldn't owe you guys reparations. Yet your ancestors incurred those trillions of dollars in debt and y'all don't want to pay it. But then when we get something like SNAP benefits, then you guys want to say, oh no, you guys can't have food. Without us and our knowledge, your ancestors would have died a long time ago because y'all would have starved to death. A working class issue that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And so when Black Americans say we feel like strangers in our own countries, we were never welcome in the first place. Never, ever, ever, ever. Never welcome. Name me a time where Black Americans were actually welcome in this country. Don't worry, I'll wait. And so when we get some tiny little semblance of social welfare, people want to lose their shit. And here's the crazy part. Now you have people making AI, and the welfare recipients, not welfare recipients, but the SNAP recipients are typically who? Black, right? And not just Black, but Black American. Or if they're outraged at somebody on TikTok, who is it that they're showing? A Black American. Why? Because they want to make us the poster child for mooching off the government, when in reality, if your ancestors didn't mooch off of ours, then maybe, just maybe, things will be a little bit more equal. And I'm not talking about all white people, of course, right? What I'm saying is the people who are complaining, who are saying this, they're literally benefiting off of a system that was built oppressively through oppression by my ancestors that made this country the superpower that it is, the economic superpower that it is. So if anything, not only do you owe reparations, but also you owe a huge thank you to my ancestors, to the workers that built this country, and they were forced to build it. So let's continue on. So it says reliance on food aid hits Black people harder. 1 in 8 Americans use SNAP, but its halt will disproportionately hurt Black Americans like Hilaire. Black people are 13.7% of the population, but 25.7% of SNAP recipients. Other racial groups get SNAP at rates lower than their overall share of the population. Historians and advocates say that that's an example of what's known as systemic racism. There may be no formally racist policy at play, but America's long history of racism, from slavery to unfair zoning rules, has left Black communities with a series of structural disadvantages and with far less wealth accumulated over generations. White people are nearly 75% of the population, but just 35.4% of SNAP recipients. Meanwhile, Black Americans are just 13.7% of the country, but more than a quarter of SNAP recipients, the largest overrepresentation of any ethnic or racial group. So, this talks about how Hispanics are underrepresented, Asian Americans are overrepresented, but much less than Black Americans, and Native Americans get SNAP at basically the same rate as their group as in the general population. Now, it says here, a report by the National Urban League last year found that the racial income gap has been virtually unchanged for more than 20 years, with Black Americans making 64% of the income of white people on average. That means out of every dollar, a Black person makes 64 cents. Oh my God, why are they all on SNAP? You figure it out. Here's the math. Do some mathing. It's right in front of you. You really are somebody that talks about wanting to help build workers. Guess what? Oh, meaning just be in order to have us equal. Because look, if I take my hands and they're like this, and I take them one up equally, boom, guess what? But here's the problem. So there needs to be equity, right? In order to make it equal, so then everybody can go up progressively together. People say, oh, well, a rising of the ocean. Special circumstances have to be made in order to bring that boat up to the surface of the water before you can cause the waters to rise together. So guess what? This is why we talk about reparations for Black American freedmen. Because the thing is that that's real equity as well as equality so that we can emerge into an egalitarian system. So this is why we talk about when it comes to working class issues that you also have to include the identity as well. Or for us, it would that has actually played a role in us having generational debt. And so when we talk about we feel like strangers in our own country, it's because we always were. We always were. And so I think this is why it's so important that we talk about this more and more often. And for anybody that is like, oh my God, I can't believe JB's talking about race like this. Well, baby, you came on Revolutionary Blackout Network. Welcome. Because we are an entirely Black group. And we got to talk about it because the thing is, like, our stories are not being told, even in the left any space like they should be. This is why we exist. This is why there's a lane that we cut out because of this. And so I want to get not just into like everything sucks, right? Because we can get into the weeds with that, right? Oh my God, everything sucks. Everything is terrible. You know, this country is going to hell in a handbasket and there's nothing we can do. Wrong, baby. This is why I'm here. This is why JB's here. Because I'm going to tell you exactly what we can do and what is being done. So here's one thing that we always talk about. You and I both know that we always talk about mutual aid, equalizing factors that will actually help us the most in this country. And so the reason why I bring that up is because I want to share with you what we have done. Now, some of you may have been able to attend, and it's great that you have. But 2 weeks ago, or was it last week? Was it last week? Or it might have been 2 weeks ago. But our sister on the channel, Savvy Sabs, hosted a workshop, a mutual aid workshop. I was there. She was kind enough to allow me to join. And we talked about establishing mutual aid within our communities in order to be able to grow our communities together so that we can build dual power to circumvent the system so that we have the government that we want to see and we are facilitating it. So I would like to see next time more people in that Zoom, and it's completely free, right? All you need to do is get the Zoom link, right? Which is free too. And then you guys can attend the Zoom class, right? Because that workshop shows you how to establish doing mutual aid and ways in which you can do it. And also mutual aid groups that you can join. You may not have the bandwidth or the wherewithal to establish a mutual aid group. You may not have it, and that's cool too. But are there mutual aid groups within your area that you can also join in order to be able to help your community? And this is not just giving things away, but it's also teaching your community about why the system is the way it is, and then coming together in order to create a new one while we still exist in the old one. So then when we transfer to the new one, there is no vacuum. So that vacuum doesn't happen. So therefore, we all go together to a more egalitarian system. So I want to share this as well because I think this is deeply important. Here is an example of mutual aid being done. Make sure I have this here. And this is a mutual aid being done in New York. So I want to share this as well. So this is in Harlem. And I want to share this. This says the Young Lords and Black Panthers preparing to feed the people in Harlem. So I'm going to pause it. I'm sorry, I'm going to mute it because of the music. But this is mutual aid being done in Harlem, in New York. And so people are doing it all over. You can be in Milwaukee. You can be in St. Paul. You can be in Savannah. You can be in Austin. You can be in Salinas. You can be in Camden. It does not matter, right? You can be in Halifax. I don't care. Just get out there and get with your community. This is getting outside and touching grass. This is getting outside and bonding with your community members, and is doing it out of love. Because the thing is that you cannot create a more equitable system without loving your community. And so this is what it looks like. And it's not just food, it's clothes, it's helping people with legal aid. This could be helping people with fixing their bikes or fixing their computers or doing carpooling. This can be so many different things in order to help the community. So I wanted to share that because that is one avenue that we can use in order to be able to help our neighbors, right? Because there's a lot of people right now that are hungry and starving. It has been happening in this country since the beginning, basically. We've always had people like that happening, right? And it's intensified over the last few years because of this system, because it needs people impoverished and unhoused in order to be able to show as an example that, oh, well, you need to accept your exploitation so that we can give you just some semblance of stability, and then you accept the abuse and exploitation that we give out to you. So I want to share something too. Here's another solution that I also want to share. I'm not going to be able to play the entire video, but this is a solution maybe that you and some friends or comrades can get together and try to set up. Now, I do want to give a shout out to Roger Meadows for sharing this with me, because this was actually a great idea. This is about community land trusts. So I'm just going to share just a little bit, and we'll get into this just a little bit, and then share why this is a good idea, especially for building generational wealth, as well as for anybody who wants to, focus more on the housing aspect. So let's get into this.
I work at Grounded Solutions Network, and our mission is to build strong communities from the ground up. And we do that in a number of different ways. We have a lot of field building and trainings, both in person and online, trainings like this one. And we also provide technical assistance and have other resources and benefits for our members on everything from establishing a CLT to creating strong local policy. So I just want to open up by talking a little bit about why we're here today. And we're really here to talk about the difference between what families in this area can afford to buy and the market value of homes. And what we're calling that is the affordability gap. So we're all trying to address this basic issue of the growing affordability gap between what folks can purchase on their own in the open market and what's actually available to them. And community land trusts seek to help to bridge this gap by acquiring, owning, and stewarding land so that it's permanently affordable for the common good. And they can acquire land in a number of different ways, purchasing land on the open market, receiving land donations, participating with different city agencies like land banks and other entities to purchase land at a discounted rate. But the key element here is that no matter what, once the land is acquired, it remains permanently in perpetuity within that CLT's portfolio, and it is never sold outside of the portfolio. And I'll explain what that means in a little bit. So as a CLT acquires land, they think about the end purpose of each parcel. And so if this were just the open market, we might think, what's the highest and best use of a land? And that might translate to, and how much money can we get for it? And CLTs are thinking about this a little bit differently. They're asking, what is our community's greatest need? And they pursue those opportunities within reason, of course. And so in addition to providing affordable homeownership opportunities to residents, CLTs have also used land to provide affordable single or multifamily rental opportunities, mixed income, and other commercial properties. All of that is possible within a CLT, but of course today we're really going to be focusing primarily on affordable housing. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about the CLT structure. So it's generally a nonprofit organization with a defined service area. And then my favorite piece is the tripartite board. I think this is really the crux of what makes CLT so special. So the tripartite board is made up of 3/3, as you might imagine, in tripartite. The first being leaseholders, so folks who are living on or using CLT land. The second third is community members, so folks from the surrounding area who aren't necessarily living on the CLT land. And the third is made up of technical experts, funders, and other stakeholders of the organization. And so membership is clearly open to anyone within the surrounding community, and it's not just those who are living on the land trust land who have a stake in what happens within that community. And so that's part of why I get really excited to talk about the tripartite board, because it truly is an example of communities really controlling the organization that affects their own home and their own local community.
So this is something I think it is important, right? We talk about, workers owning the means of production, right? Well, what about community members owning the land, which is also a means of production within their given area? So when it comes to, instead of just having an individual ownership is community land trust, also one of the biggest things is affordability. Now, of course, affordability is subjective, right? But, it's like affordable for whom? However, one of the things I think is important is that we talk about, even though we're trying to get out of the system, we use whatever tools that we have within this system in order to make it better for the working class while we're trying to simultaneously change it, while we're trying to simultaneously create a brand new system. And so utilizing things like community land trust, is that something that you can possibly get together with some family or friends in order to be able to do, in order to have some type of generational wealth for yourself and the rest of the people around you? Is that something you can influence other people around as well in order to be able to have something like that? Because ultimately the goal is housing, right? Now, we may not all be able to do this, but if a few are able to do this, then that means more resources could be used toward doing more mutual aid and building dual power, you see? And so this is why I value information like this. And this is a big shout out to Roger Meadows for sharing this with me, because I think that, for instance, if you want to leave, the big banks, a great option is to go to credit unions, because credit unions are basically a financial institution cooperative, right? Now you have cooperatives as far as land and home ownership. Also, I'm a big proponent of, tenant cooperatives, right? Tenants really collectively owning the apartment building or the apartment community that they live. So this is basically the workers or the proletariat owning the means of production and being able to dictate democratically how things are ran. And so, especially to all my Black Americans, and this isn't limited to just Black people, but this is especially to my Black Americans, are we getting together with each other? And also, this also means that some of the bigotry that we may even have within ourselves, we got to throw that away. So any of the classism that some freedmen may have towards others, or even queer phobia that we may have to LGBTQ freedmen, oh yes, baby, we got to talk about it. All that stuff has to go out the window. This includes everybody else too that is non-Black, right? Because if you have any of these bigotries, it is hard, it is extremely difficult to unite with other workers in order to be able, because people who are marginalized, if they do not feel safe around you, they're not going to unite with you. Let's be real, right? You can disagree with, how they live their life and things like that, but if you're not going to show them any respect for their life and for their well-being, they're not going to want to unite with you, because they're not going to feel any type of safety with you at all. And this is also what's really important, right? It's the same thing with being having misogynist views, right? And on top of it, this is also with having misandrist views. So either way, if you have these bigoted views whatsoever, especially if you're bigoted towards people who may be disabled, guess what? They're not going to want to unite with you either. So this is why it's important for us to take whatever, we have to decolonize our minds in this way so that it makes uniting with our fellow workers, our fellow proletariat easier, so then we can actually move together. So let's continue. I want to share also this point here as well. This was such a great presentation, by the way, that I really wanted to get into. Let me see. I think this is it. So it talks about the home ownership difference. It says home ownership done differently. It says what challenges do low-income home buyers face accessing home ownership? It says what challenges do they face once they've attained home ownership? It says success of first-time homeowners is 47%, but success of community land trust homeowners is 93%. This is within the first 5 years. So this is deeply important too, because if less than half of homeowners have a success rate within 5 years, but 93% have a success homeowner rate within 5 years. I think the benefit is going with something like a community land trust. So this is something also that I think is really important for us to consider as well, because ultimately it's not Xi Jinping said, right? Homes are for living in, not for speculation. And so if you really are looking for something to live in, then this is what we need. Because ultimately, I'll be real. Look, ACAB all day. And then also, I ain't down with landlords, right? And so if you can get out of being a renter in order to own, then please do so, right? So that you can be able to do this too. Because ultimately, and I'm going to share the link to this to the chat, but I think this is also really important. So let me play this just a little bit more, and then I will share this in the chat, this video in the chat, so you guys can take a look at it as well. It's very educational.
So what you're seeing here is that before the foreclosure crisis, it was shown that only 47% of first-time low-income and minority home buyers retained homeownership for 5 years. However, over 90% of CLT homeowners are able to retain home ownership for at least 5 years. And research has, of course, shown that the longer the duration of tenure in a home, this is the most critical factor in terms of building wealth over time. So, very proud of these numbers. So, CLTs in action. In the communities they serve, CLTs can do more than just home ownership or housing, as I mentioned. The application of the model can be based on community need in ways that are adaptable and responsive to need or maybe a changing market. So it might include something like urban agriculture, commercial use, land preservation, whatever the needs are of the community. Of course, today we're really thinking about housing, but just worth noting that it doesn't have to be exclusive to what you build within your community.
So so I shared that in the chat so you guys can take a look at that. But these are just some of the answers that we can utilize in order to be able to make our situation a little bit more bearable while we help build dual power within this country in order to make it a new system that is beneficial for everybody. And so, yes, Black Americans, we definitely feel like this system isn't for us. We were never welcome. We don't feel welcome. We don't feel like this is the America that we felt like we thought we were part of. And that's by design. But also, it can be, we just have to change the system so that it is beneficial for all of us. And it is something that gives dignity to all of us collectively. So go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much to everybody for joining in for this one. Yeah, I really wanted to touch on this story because I think it's deeply important that we talk about the impacts on different marginalized groups. Of course, I am part of a couple of marginalized groups myself, and so we also have to inculcate that into the conversation in line with what we see that's happening with us when it comes to America, right? Um, as we've seen with Donald Trump trying to take away, basically try to circumvent the history of what happened to us Black Americans, especially like, for instance, with the Smithsonian African American Museum, right? Wanting to cover up really the history of chattel slavery and how bad it was because he is basically a scared little snowflake and doesn't want to face the history of white supremacy in this country, right? And look, you can't be a scared little snowflake when it comes to the history of our country. It is what it is, and so you're gonna have to reckon with it, and you're gonna have to deal with it. You're gonna have to accept it, and you're gonna have to work to change from it. That's just the way it is. Unfortunately, some people don't want to because either they don't think that there's a problem, or they don't want to change it because they're benefiting from the system and they don't want that benefit to be taken away, because if everybody has dignity, that means that they're just like everybody else. So let's get into the chats. Let me check to see if we have any Rumble rants. And then if not, then we will go into, let me see. Okay, we're good on the Rumble rants. Okay. So we're going to be getting into the YouTube chat here. I have a couple of chats starred because I wanted to answer those two as well. This is on the Rumble side. Says Knights of the Storm says the problem with Snap is that the money that comes out of the pockets of the people who are also struggling to feed their families is a division tactic. So here's the problem, right? First of all, I do not think that Snap covers as many people as it should. So either give everyone a livable wage, and by a living wage, I mean one that is tied to the cost of inflation. If you really want a great measurement for that, I recommend going to the National Low Income Housing Coalition Out of Reach report, and it actually shows how much you need to make in order to be able to afford a 2-bedroom rental within your state. Florida, the state that I currently live in, actually is number 9. It's the 9th most expensive state in the United States. And you need to make $37.27 an hour in order to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Therefore, because I live in Florida, you should be making at the minimum $37.27 an hour in order to be able to have a job. You should be able to make that. But the problem is that people go, well, some of these small businesses can't afford it. Well, then they should be subsidized then. And they should be subsidized by the big, gigantic corporations. And the big, gigantic corporations should be paying more so that to subsidize the small businesses. So then the small businesses, they will be able to cover a portion of the people's, the workers' salary, and then the rest can get funded or proportionally given by the government, until that small business can actually afford to pay people the full living wage by themselves. So it's basically giving small business a leg up. Also, while we're talking about it, SNAP benefits do not just benefit people who are poor, who can't afford food. A lot of the grocery stores are funded by SNAP benefits, as well as the jobs that are done by people who work at these grocery stores. And it also, that money in turn goes towards the people in agriculture, especially our farmers and ranchers. So therefore, they also benefit. And it actually puts more money back into the economy than it takes out. So therefore, when it comes to SNAP benefits, it's actually a net benefit for the country instead of a net negative. The problem is that people don't know this. And so they think, oh, it's just a bunch of people who are moochers who don't do anything and they just accept a check. When in reality, that's not the case. And so you may see somebody and you may think they're able-bodied, just like many people who thought I was able-bodied for the last almost 18 years, but I was on kidney dialysis. And yes, I was getting food stamps at the time. And so the thing is like we also have to reckon with the fact that we have a system that exploits people so much that they can't even afford a living wage in order to be able to afford the food that they should be able to buy. So this means that the problem isn't individual, the problem is systemic. And so how do we make it so that these corporations are paying a living wage? Well, if you took these corporations out of the hands of the parasitic class that actually put us here in the first place, basically the modern day robber barons, and then put it in the hands of the workers, well, then that wealth would be distributed a lot more equally among us. You mean you see the top 1% of Americans as far as what they make in this country. I was going to say the word earn, but they don't actually earn it. It's really just theft. But the top 1% hold about $50 trillion in wealth, while the bottom of us, we share something like 5 trillion, and that's like 150 million people sharing $5 trillion among us, while the top 1%, which is what, 3 million people, share $50 trillion among them. So that inequality is so deep, so vast, to the point where we're basically like a bunch of people that are in a mansion, but we're in the basement of the mansion. But we're not just in the basement of a mansion, we're in the closet in the basement of a mansion. And there's like 200 of us in that one closet. Whereas you only got 2 people or 1 person that occupies the rest of the mansion by themselves, and they have access to everything. Is that fair? So that would mean that we have to change the system entirely. That means we got to break the door down. And we got the numbers. The problem is that we've been listening to that one person living on the upper floor saying, oh, well, all you guys just need to do is you guys need to have more financial literacy. Here's a fact. We cannot financial literacy our way out of a system that exploits all of us the way it does. There ain't no doing it. You can try to 401k your way into something that it ain't going to happen. And so this is why I talk about what I talk about. And the thing is, like, ultimately, you know what? If getting SNAP benefits helps people just a little bit more so that they won't be able to suffer, then by all means. Because, look, we're talking about people who get SNAP benefits, but are we talking about the people who get all these different tax breaks and subsidies that are amounting to the trillions, even more than what people, 40 some odd million people are getting from SNAP benefits? They're getting more. A tiny group of people is getting more money than the rest of us who are getting SNAP benefits just so we can survive through the month. So I think our priorities need to be shifted towards the people who are the greediest of us all. And the greediest of us all are the ones that are sitting on these gigantic ivory towers that look down upon us simply because we weren't born in the right family. Dabby Dab says, Jaybe, Target. Most do have jobs. If they don't, there is this thing called welfare to work that DSHS has. In order to continue receiving food stamps, you have to apply for at least 12 jobs a week. Yeah. Basically. Jokers for you said food banks and farmers markets. Yeah, and there are food banks, but the problem is a lot of these food banks are actually have less food now. And also the money that would go to these food banks and help to subsidize. By the way, we also have government subsidies for food banks too, not just food stamps. Government subsidies also go to food banks. And so these are people who don't have much. But the choice is a lot more limited with food banks because this is what they have and what they can get. By the way, this also limits the choices of food. People who have different dietary restrictions, different texture restrictions, because you may have people with sensitive teeth or no teeth, different things like that, right? So that's another issue that we also don't consider very much as well. But yes, there's also that food banks and farmers markets. Gold is Heavy says, with things being so ish and bajillionaires more powerful than ever, we need a strong left more than ever. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Thank you very much for that. Gold is Heavy. Let me see. Blue Sky says, all you have to do is tell our true story, JB. We'll give you one of the yachts we'll take from the tech bros if you do. Will be very fun and very righteous ride. I don't want a yacht. I just want a little canoe. Just give that to me and I'm good. Right? Let me see. And yes, I know there was a troll in the chat. They come in once in a while, especially when they see somebody like me. Yeah, they're snowflakes and they can't take seeing somebody with my identity talking the truth about things. But that's okay. If you don't have haters that are cappies, then you're not doing your job right. All right, so let's go on to first, let me thank the patrons on Patreon, because without you guys, this channel would not exist. See, one of the things that we try to do here at Revolutionary Blackout Networks, we try to not just talk the talk, but also walk the walk. This is why mutual aid is a central portion of what we do, especially when it comes to our activism. The mutual aid in building dual power and learning from our community members, as well as doing more for them, really is something that pushes more towards our goal. The goal really is to put ourselves out of business, so to speak, right? We don't want to have this system that continuously exacerbates our oppression. And so this is why we do what we do, and you guys make it absolutely possible by helping us to support the work that we do. And so we thank you so very much to all the people who have supported Revolutionary Blackout Network over the last 4.5 years that we've been operating. So a big shout out and thank you to all of you, and thank you so very much. And your contributions do not go unnoticed. So thank you. So let's get into, you know what? Let me do one more thing, because I want to make sure that I also highlight this. Let me see. By the way, guys, do not join Twitter, because Twitter's a cesspool. The only reason why we're on Twitter is because we kind of have to be. So there is a gentleman that Rome is trying to help out, a young gentleman, and he is unhoused, living in an abandoned school, and he has no warm clothes. And this is in Michigan. If anybody knows, in Michigan, that it gets brutally cold, right? Especially when you get the lake effect snow from Lake Michigan, things like that. So let me just share this, and I'll also share the link in which you guys can donate. But this is Rome says, there's a young man staying in an abandoned school across the street from me. I'm doing a fundraiser to help him out. Please donate if you can. So in the notes, if you guys donate anything to Rome, just please make sure it's for the young man in the school. And so let me just share just a little bit of this.
Good morning. I wanted to do this early so I can try to surprise them, but where I am living for the moment, there is a young man, a little bit younger than me, have to be about 25 years old. He's staying in an abandoned school, and I see he has no coat, and his shoes is really beat up. So I don't know what else to do besides come to you guys and ask for a little bit of help to at least try to help him get a coat from the flea market, and some shoes, maybe some boots. I'm gonna ask him what is his shoe size, but I'm pretty sure boots is going for $50 to $100 right now. It don't have to be anything, like Timberland or Nike like that. But as long as we can get some shoes on his feet, I think we can help him survive this winter, because the building is real big, and I have yet to see him with any of the things that he's gonna need to survive the winter. So it was just something that's been dwelling on me. I see him every day. He's literally my neighbor for right now. But sleeping in that building, it can't be good for you, especially when you don't have anything to cover up your upper body and your feet. I just don't want to wake up one day and he never makes it out that building, and they knock it down or they try to fix it up and they just find him dead in there, frozen to death. And if I can do something, if I can do anything, I might as well try. So I'm reaching out to you guys. I don't know how much it's going, but probably like $100 to $200 will help him get a coat and some shoes. So thank you to everybody who have watched this video, and thank you to everybody who's gonna contribute. We definitely need your help. I don't know. Maybe I should I'm gonna just do a big giveaway after this, but I think $200 should help him out. Thank you, and good morning.
So I'm going to share Rome's his Cash App, so you guys have that, so you guys can donate. This is really for this young man so that he has something warm to wear, because the winters in Michigan are brutal. So there you go. I put it in the chat so you guys can help this young man out. And the thing is, it's really just about helping out our neighbors so that they do not go without, and I applaud Rome for that, for seeing that story as well, because, if I were that young man, I would think all hope is gone, right? But thank you so very much to Rome for that. I wanted to make sure I shared that, and I'll share it a little bit later too as well for that, so that you guys can also get the link again. But let's get into the next story that I want to share, and this one is based on something serious, but I also kind of want to laugh at the expense of war criminals and a terrorist. So I'm going to laugh at their expense. And I hope you guys laugh at their expense too, because they're horrible people. So let's get into this. So we're going to get into some Testify. It is Sunday. We're going to testify, baby. Because why? Well, it is something that is needed. Praise the Lord. All right. Will he do it? Yes, he will. Look, guys, I'm telling you right now, this story, it really is based on what has been happening, that we've been seeing basically a live stream genocide in front of our eyes for the last 2 years. But really, it has been an escalation of a genocide that's been going on for over 75 years, since 1948. and since the Nakba that happened in Palestine. In occupied Palestine right now, of course, you have hundreds of thousands of Palestinians right now that are dead. And then also on top of that, you have millions of Palestinians that are subject to starvation and deplorable conditions because of what the genocidal state of Israel is doing against them. And so one of the things that I want to cover first before we get to our primary subject that I want to share is I want to get into this report that talks about the ceasefire and how this ceasefire isn't really a ceasefire. And so we're going to get into this. And then also we're going to get into a report that I want to share about the ceasefire, the apparent ceasefire that just never was. And so we'll get into this right now.
Hours after launching airstrikes that Gaza health officials say killed 104 Palestinians, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that the ceasefire with Hamas is back on. President Trump said he thought the strike was justified after a sniper killed an Israeli soldier in Gaza, but emphasized that, quote, nothing is going to jeopardize the ceasefire. He followed that up with another threat to Hamas, which refuses to disarm or give up control of Gaza.
You have to understand, Hamas is a very small part of peace in the Middle East, and they have to behave. They're on the rough side, but they said they would be good, and if they're good, they're going to be happy, and if they're not good, they're going to be terminated. Their lives will be terminated.
Okay, so here's the thing. You want the Palestinian resistance to completely disarm while they are fighting a nuclear power that has been massacring their people for 75 years. Am I getting that right? And you can talk about how 2 years ago, 1,200 Israelis were killed by them. Okay. We're estimating 600,000 Palestinians been murdered, have been destroyed by this Zionist regime. The proportions are completely out of whack. And on top of that, you're occupying their land. You're stealing their homes. You're murdering their people. You're even committing sexual assault to their people while they're in captivity. And you mean to tell me that you want them to disarm? Come on now. That's the chamber pot calling the toilet white. It is stupid beyond comprehension to say, oh my God, they're not disarming. Well, you haven't given them a reason to disarm. Are you okay? Apparently not. Because you're saying, oh, well, we just need to get them to disarm and things will be better. And then Donald Trump's like, well, they got to be good. As if they're a bunch of petulant children. If you want to look at a bunch of petulant children, then maybe, just maybe, you look like Bibi and Smotrich. You look at these monsters and tell me who really is the petulant child that needs to be told what they should and shouldn't do. Because apparently Bibi can't even look. His trigger finger has been itchy ever since he's become prime minister. His trigger finger has been itchy ever since he developed Zionism as an ideology. My God, these people. Anyway, let's continue on.
We should note Hamas denies involvement with the shooting of the soldier or violating the ceasefire at any point.
Okay, so here's the thing. 99 times out of 100, look, if Hamas is going to say we did it, they're going to be honest. They're like, yeah, we did it. And, right? They're going to be honest. And even if you were against Hamas, look, you could say, oh, there are a lot of things, but a liar is not one of them. So if they're like, we have nothing to do with that, then this means this was an excuse. Somebody created an excuse to continue murdering Palestinians. That's exactly what this is. This is nothing short of just creating more chaos so that they can continue mowing the lawn. And this is exactly what it is. Let's continue on.
This test of the truce, the deadliest since the ceasefire went into effect, comes amid a furor in Israel over the return of hostage remains that the Red Cross says was staged by Hamas. Your State Department and CIA official, it's good to see you.
Oh, great. A CIA spoke right in front of our eyes. Take me away, Lord.
Ned. So Israel was able to launch these massive strikes on Gaza, and then they said basically, all right, ceasefire's back on. For now, Trump's backing them. Does that give Netanyahu leeway just to break the peace at will?
Look, here's what, before he answers, let me say this. Netanyahu is basically, he will create a condition that he'll break the ceasefire. He'll create conditions that make it look like they broke the ceasefire, but then he'll break the ceasefire. And then once he's taken out enough Palestinians for his liking, okay, ceasefire back on, ceasefire back on, ceasefire back on. We didn't do anything wrong. Do we look like Boo Boo the Fool to you? For all his bluster, Benjamin Netanyahu is, I got to be careful. But he's not very bright. Seems to be two sandwiches short of a picnic, if you ask me. And so, yes, he's using this to say, "Oh, see, we have I'm putting ceasefire back, but you violated it."
Chris, that's the question. I think in all of this, we have to remember the dynamic at play. We have these two belligerents, neither of whom were all that eager to end this war in the first place. Hamas did not and still does not want to disarm and to disband. And the Israeli prime minister, perhaps more than anything, wished to keep his far-right coalition together, while also, importantly to him, of course, staying out of prison, which incentivized him to resist signing the ceasefire in the first place, and perhaps incentivizes him to continue jeopardizing it now. So look, that's the backdrop. It's pretty clear that Hamas violated the ceasefire in at least one way by, as you referred to, staging the return of these hostage remains. Israel, as you said, also claimed that an IDF convoy came under fire. But the last time this happened, even the Trump administration said this wasn't a Hamas attack. Hamas may have had nothing to do with it, and its leadership was unwitting. We just don't know. But here's what we do know, Chris, to your question. The response we've seen from Israel thus far is in no way proportionate, killing dozens, including scores of women and children as a result of what we've seen over the past day or so just isn't an acceptable response. They need to hear that from the international community. Most importantly, they need to hear that from the Trump administration. And if this formula continues, disproportionate response in response to violations of the ceasefire, it will be a ceasefire in name only, unfortunately.
So
it was always a ceasefire in name only. That's what it was. Every single time. And so you're going to tell me that, you know, and here's the thing about never trust a CIA spook. Ever. Never trust somebody that was in the CIA. Unless they're telling you all the crimes of the CIA, no, don't trust them. And to both sides this as if, oh, well, both sides are belligerent. No, one is literally trying to keep and get their land back and have liberation. The other is trying to take something that does not belong to them in order to be able to have it and to grow an empire and colonize an area that's not really theirs. It's theft. You calling a one side belligerent for protecting what is actually theirs. That's not belligerence. That's zeal. That's not belligerence. That's it's trying to protect what is always been theirs in the first place. They have been resolute in wanting to keep their land, their land.
Vice President J.D. Vance described what happened in Gaza as little skirmishes here and there. So if that doesn't constitute a violation of the ceasefire, if the deaths of more than 100 people in airstrikes don't, how do we know when the ceasefire has been breached?
Yeah, look, Chris, I would not call this little skirmishes. When scores of women and children, according to multiple accounts, are killed, this is not a little skirmish. And look, ceasefires rarely stick once and for all. In most cases, you are going to see some form of violations. Really, the question is, can the two sides, with help from the international community and perhaps most importantly from the Trump administration, ceasefire holds once again? I think the challenge we're seeing now is that, contrary to what the Trump administration...
Okay, so I have to be careful.
We're just not seeing...
They're showing a lot of video that I can't show here. So...
seeing that pressure on both sides. We're seeing the continued pressure on Hamas. But if Bibi is able to break the ceasefire in this disproportionate way, time and again, I'm afraid it's going to fray and ultimately give way to war once again.
We only have about a minute left, but I do want to ask you about the footage that the IDF released that they say shows Hamas burying a body and then digging it up in front of Red Cross observers as if they were discovering the remains of one of the...
So this is just ridiculousness on top of ridiculousness when it comes to this ceasefire, this non-existent ceasefire that really is not happen. And I just want to share this as well, because this is also a really important point that in regards to what Israel has been doing. If you guys do not follow the Electronic Intifada, this is a wonderful website that actually gives you what the real is happening on the ground in Palestine. So Israel kills dozens of children in a single day during quote unquote ceasefire. So this came out 2 days ago. It says in Gaza, Israel continue to break the ceasefire by killing and injuring Palestinians in airstrikes and drone attacks, and by sustaining a brutal siege on humanitarian aid and necessary equipment to feed people, rebuild infrastructure, and save lives. On October 28th, Israel claimed that Palestinian resistance forces killed an Israeli soldier in Rafah and alleged that the body of an Israeli captive transferred from Gaza by Hamas did not match the one of the 13 to be handed over as part of the ceasefire. The Israeli government stated that it would resume wide-scale attacks, and that night, Israeli airstrikes killed at least 104 Palestinians, including 46 children, and injured more than 250. Journalist Mohammed al-Jabari filmed Palestinians carrying the bodies of their loved ones, including many children, wrapped in small white shrouds into cemeteries on Wednesday morning. Hamas rejected Israel's claim, saying that its armed wing had no connection to any attack on Israeli soldiers in Rafah, and also called on the international mediators to take immediate action to rein Israel in. The political party called Israel's airstrikes an extension of a series of violations committed over the past few days, including attacks that resulted in deaths and injuries, and the continued closure of Rafah crossing, which confirms the insistence on violating the terms of the agreement and attempting to sabotage it. Since the ceasefire took hold in October, at least 211 Palestinians have been killed and approximately 600 injured, according to Gaza Health Ministry. The Gaza government media office tallied at least 125 violations by Israel of the ceasefire on Tuesday's attacks, including the number that were at least 52 shootings operations daily targeting civilians, 9 incursions of vehicles into residential neighborhoods, crossing into the so-called yellow line, in addition to 55 shelling and targeting operations and 11 bombings of civilian buildings. 21 citizens were arrested in various areas of the Gaza Strip as well, the media office stated. So it talks about October 27th, Israeli drone strike near Khan Yunis in the south killed at least 2 Palestinians. The aftermath of Tuesday's airstrikes, Gaza's civil defense spokesperson Mahmoud Basal said that the rescue workers were still trying to recover the dead and wounded from underneath massive amounts of rubble. Hospitals were overwhelmed with injured, and it reported Ahmed Kahil captured this clip of rescue operation on Tuesday night. Not going to be able to share that because of, because of YouTube. But this is talking about, destruction at the Nuseirat refugee camp. So it's continuing, and Benjamin Netanyahu is basically saying, oh, well, the ceasefire is back on. It was never back on. He never intended for it to be a ceasefire. And Benjamin Netanyahu is a bold-faced liar. He is a horrible terrorist and a horrible liar too. So therefore, look, this is exactly what's happening. And so when people are revolting against Democrat and Republican politicians about what's going on in Gaza, it is completely justified because of what actually Israel has been doing on the ground materially. They have been continuing to massacre and destroy the lives of Palestinians in Gaza, as well as in the West Bank, Jenin, Rafah, Khan Yunis, what have you. And so this is what has been going on. So this is why I want to share this, because this is absolutely important context to show why politicians like Cory Booker, as to why he's being accosted by activists. And so I want to share this as well, because this is what's important. So let me share this as well, because this is why we need more people to speak out. Now, of course, we just had Halloween, and if we're focused on Halloween monsters, what better than a demon like Benjamin Netanyahu? Let's get into this right here.
Please keep funding our genocide. Thank you, America.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for saying something about Thank you for saying something about Thank you, America. Please keep funding our genocide. Thank you, America.
It's a very big
Cory Booker for Senate. Cory Booker, 2026. Let's go. Keep voting for
Gaza. What kind of outlook do they have? You funded a genocide, and you talk about values. You voted to send bombs to Israel, and you're talking about love and values here and children in your neighborhood. Children in your neighborhood get Twinkies and apples. They don't get bombed while going to get them. You took $800,000 from PayPal.
So, look, testify. Testify. Look, Cory Booker, you were in church. It was time to testify and to confess your sins, because guess what? You got blood on your hands. You got blood on your hands, and your hands are far from clean. And you're sitting there in the house of the Lord, and you're talking about wanting to be good to other people. If you really want to be good to other people, then looks like you're going to have to go against a genocidal state that's literally killing the people who Jesus comes from. And yet you're in a church. If I were sitting next to Cory Booker, and if I actually believed, if I was a Christian still, I would have moved out of the way, because I would not want to be coming what's near him if God actually exists. And that's the thing, right? I want to give a huge shout out to the person in that mask. And I just want to go over what was said, because they were muffled. So it says, pro-Palestinian activist disrupts Cory Booker's speech at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. Says, thank you, Americans. Please keep funding our genocide.
Thank you, Americans.
He said, you're my Booker. He said, AIPAC comes bearing gifts today.
Oh, wow.
He said, here's a little stack of cash for your great work. Thank you for staying silent about killing Christians. Silent about the Christians in Israel's killing. See, this is the thing. A lot of people don't think about this, right? Israel literally killed Christians. If you consider yourself a Christian and your brothers and sisters in Christ were murdered by the state of Israel, why do you support them? Let me get close to the camera so y'all can hear what I'm saying to you. If you do this to least of these, you've done it to me. What part about that scripture do you not understand? If you did it to the least of these, you've done it to me. This is exactly what people like Cory Booker is doing. This is exactly what Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, J.D. Vance, Kamala Harris. This is what people like Ben Shapiro are doing. No, he's not an elected official, but he stands by Israel. He kisses the feet. This is what people like Randy Fine. This is what they do. And so the problem is the people who claim to be Christian are becoming the very antichrist they fearmonger about. Also, Black people, be very wary about people who sits and consort with people who are supremacists, because that means you have a trash panda on your hands, right? We've seen them, haven't we? We've seen them since chattel slavery. Cory Booker is the kind that says, hey, master, we sick? We sick. That's who Cory Booker is. So be mindful about people like that, because here's the thing. He wants you to think that he actually stands with you when he's sitting right next to supremacists and getting their funding. Because remember what Butch Ware said one time? He said, who funds you, runs you. Well, guess who runs? Cory Booker. He said, here's a little dead baby bonus. He said, and for all the churches that Israel bombed too. He said, thank you so much. I endorse Cory Booker for Senate. Thank you, Americans. Cory Booker for Senate. If Cory Booker's a Christian, he needs to get himself right with God. Because instead of going to the upper room, he may be going down to the lower room. Okay? The problem is that this is why the system has to be changed fundamentally. I want to give a shout out to Florida Palestine Network. I was with them yesterday at their Samud school as we were discussing the writings of Hassan Ghanafani, as well as Paolo Fieri, I think his name was. And they were revolutionaries who actually were trying to encourage revolution among Palestinian and Brazilian activists in order to be able to change the systems, to fight for real liberation. And they reference many people. They reference people like Che Guevara, Angela Davis, Bell Hooks, as well in their writings. Because these revolutionaries, these people who are liberation minded, see how all of our liberations are intrinsically connected. Once we change the system here, then that also contributes to the liberation of Palestine. And this is why we have to continue to build dual power and circumvent this system and create a brand new one that is equal and equitable for all of us. People like Cory Booker should not even be allowed in a house of God for the things that he does and represents. No temple, no mosque, no synagogue, no church should allow him in their doors. The reason why I say all those is because there are many people who are Jewish who reject Zionism, who reject this genocidal state that is constantly murdering and massacring people. There are Christians out there who reject this. Of course, there are Muslims there are Hindus that reject this. There are atheists that reject this. You make sure that you are one that rejects this too. Because if not, the universe will not look kindly upon you. So, look, do what you can to get rid of this system and let's build something that is better for all of us. Shout out to all the activists that are calling out politicians anywhere and everywhere they can. And let's continue to fight towards liberation. I do want to compliment them using the scary Netanyahu mask for Halloween. That was a nice touch. If we're going to focus on monsters, we might as well focus on the real ones. All right, everybody. Like the stream. Thank you so very much. We're going to get into some of the comments in the chat, and we are on our way out. We are going out. And yeah, JB got to get some lunch because our brother hungry. All right, guys. So let me check on to see if we have any Rumble rants. Let's see here. Oh, ooh, I can hear my voice. Hang on. Quiet, JB. All right. Let's see here. All right. So, all right. So, let's go here. All right, thank you. The Prince says Ileana Chan has been trying to reach out to RBN for an interview. She is a cool person, and her show Empire Watch is awesome. I'm already in talks with Ileana. We already set something up. So thank you very much for spelling her name. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it very much. Yeah, we're already in talks right now. And so let's get into here. All right, let me take a look. All right, so Jokers on the Rumble side said basic human needs should be universal human rights. Agreed. Let me see. Oh, yeah, Rondo. Thank you so much. He said Musk's SpaceX contracts. Yeah, like all that money that he gets for those SpaceX contracts, absolutely not. No. Take those contracts away. Take those subsidies away. He don't need them. He is a multi-billionaire. He don't need them. So guess what? Give it to somebody else who does. Let me see. Sean says, you know, you're the most hated politician when someone goes full on roast fest on you while cosplaying as your favorite Zio idol. My God. I wonder what Rosario Dawson saw in him. My goodness. Yeah. Luna says, check out the applause. Yeah, right? The thing is, like, it felt kind of almost like a mixed crowd. Like some people were like, yeah, go after him. But some people were like, oh no, we can't have that. Thank you for this, Roger. He says, in the short term, like that show, Flip That House, thus creating a schizophrenic, volatile economy where housing prices go up and down, up and down. While doing it this way, you get to know your community. Land trusts allow communities to invest in their neighborhoods, building wealth over a long period of time instead of using it as a get-rich-quick scheme, which it would entail buying homes and then selling them in short term, and selling in short term, like Flip That House, thus creating a schizophrenic, volatile economy where housing prices go up and down. While doing this, you get to know your neighbors, developing relationships and looking out for your neighbors' kids when they can't. That's how you get back to community, James. Yeah. And that's what we're ultimately trying to do, is we're all trying to get back to community. Oh, yeah. Applause for the protester. Yeah, I hope that was applause for him, because, I mean, he was based. Appreciate it. Yeah. Ethan says, clap, clap, clap. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So, guys, got to get going. But I thank you all for tuning in for this show. Of course, I will be live on Tuesday. I'm thinking of, I don't know. I don't want to interfere with my comrades on RBN on Tuesday evening, but the New York mayoral race is this Tuesday. And there's a part of me that wants to go live like around the time where the polls close. So I think the polls should be closed around 7 or 8 p.m. At the same time, I would like to be live when the polls close so you can see, right? See how things go. Because there's a lot of people that are early voting right now, especially in regards to Mamdani. And, they're like, the Democrats and Republicans are fighting hard to keep him out. Like, some Democrats are very like, I mean, it's like the whole vote blue no matter who just went out the window. And the Republicans, a lot of Republicans are like, oh no, we can't have him because he'll give stuff away. It's so stupid. And it's like, Mamdani's not even radical, y'all. Like, what are you afraid of? That's like being a little kid that's afraid of. That's like a little kid being afraid of the dark. Not even afraid of the dark. Like, even that's kind of more legit. Like, you don't know what's coming. Like, it's like being afraid of a fluffy kitten. Anyways, I was thinking about, I don't know. I would like to, but who knows? I might go live on somebody else's show. I don't know. But we'll see. But guys, tune in to me 3 p.m. on Tuesday. And then in a few days, I will also have a big announcement that will be happening. And I hope you guys will be able to listen in on the announcement. I'll be making it on my channel because I have something that is exciting that's going to be happening next. And I've been preparing for it. So I hope you guys will be able to tune into that. And also, while I'm at it, I want to give a shout out, and I don't want to give too many details, but our comrade and volunteer Zoya has experienced something tragic in her family. Zoya, our thoughts and our hearts are with you as you go through this. Guys, if you guys, as you're, ending the chat, please put a heart in the chat for Zoya. She's going through it right now, and our hearts are with her because it is, I was feeling bad last night, so just let her know that you're with her, right? Because Zoya is, a lovely, lovely person, and she's been so helpful, instrumental to helping us here at RBN. So thank you very much. So thank you for that. Definitely. Love for Zoya. Love, love, love. All right. Roger says, just double stream with Zabby. She might have someone on from New Jersey. Remember, there's a New Jersey and Virginia governor race along with California Prop 50. Yeah, we also have an election too for city council. I meant to vote, but I didn't, because I didn't even get to do the research to see if there was a third party running in my city council district. I feel bad, but the other two are Democrats, right? But yeah. So guys, thank you very much for the love for Zoya. Thank you so very much. Ballot measure, cool beans. All right, guys, let's get on out of here. Thank you so very much to everybody. Look, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them, if you ain't got them, then watch something funny because joy is revolutionary, or read because reading is fundamental. Please also keep in mind all the people who are disenfranchised in this country. Please continue to show your love and compassion towards them, because a lot of people are now really going through it. Do mutual aid, and make sure, like when Sabby announces she's doing another mutual aid workshop, please make sure to join that. Also, keep an eye on her channel for whenever she makes that announcement. If you're in Central Florida, I try to do mutual aid at least once a month with different groups. If you guys can, come through. We'll meet and we'll have fun while doing mutual aid and helping out the people. All right. So I try to do mutual aid once a month at the very least. Okay. So please make sure to do that. I'll see you guys next time. You guys have yourself a wonderful day. Mwah! Love you guys for watching, and I will see you Tuesday. Bye-bye.